Hello and welcome back for another few chapters of the Dragons of Blueland. These are actually going to be the last 3 chapters in this book, and then the whole series will come to an end. Oh, I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get to it. Elmer and the baby dragon are now back in Blueland, and we're going to find out what happens next. Here we go. Chapter 9, Blueland. Elmer and the dragon dozed until late afternoon. They were both impatient to be off, but as Elmer said, "We only spoil everything by getting there before it's dark enough." So then they waited and rested and drank cool mountain water. The dragon munched on ferns while Elmer ate his 3rd chocolate bar. "I can't stand it any longer," said the dragon, jumping up and shaking out his wings. "All right," said Elmer, "let's go." He put on his knapsack and climbed onto the dragon's back. They walked to a clearing in the woods, and the dragon took off across awful desert. It was hot over the sands, even in the late afternoon, and Elmer crouched over to hide from the burning winds. The dragon panted for air, but flew faster and faster, hardly daring to think what might have happened since he left. He kept muttering, "Oh, if only the sandstorms would start up. Where are the sandstorms? That would make the men leave us all alone." When they came to the dry, rocky slopes of Blueland, the sun was low on the horizon, and they knew it would soon be dark inside that circle of mountains. "Keep a sharp lookout," warned the dragon as they picked their way through the boulders. "They may have men posted anywhere." Up they went, slowly, quietly. At last they reached the big gap between the peaks, and Elmer gasped as he saw the sight below. The beautiful meadows of Blueland shone bright green, dotted with patches of snapdragons glowing white in the dim light. And at the center of the lake, water reflected the pink of the sky. Suddenly it was gone into darkness as the sun set. But the dragon had been straining to see across the lake, and suddenly he grabbed Elmer for joy. "The men! I saw the men! They were still standing outside the cave with the net! Maybe we're not too late!" He hurried Elmer down to the giant snapdragon bush, which hid the entrance to the little tunnel. "I don't think they've found it yet," he whispered happily as he pulled aside the roots and rocks. "Yeah, neither do I," agreed Elmer, looking all around to be sure that he remembered this very spot. Then he took off his knapsack and he unpacked one whistle, one horn, the flashlight, and the ball of string. "Lower your neck so I can measure the string for your whistle and your horn," he said, getting out his jackknife. "Why do I have to have them on strings?" asked the dragon. "Because I don't want you to drop them. If the men never see them, maybe they'll never guess what happened." The dragon laughed and then tried out the strings to make sure that he could reach the horn and the whistle very easily. "Yeah, they're fine," he said. "Now I'll wait here until you tell me it's time. Look, the men are building a campfire. They must be ready to have their supper." "So much the better," said Elmer as he started down into the tunnel with his knapsack. "Hey, but how will your family know I'm your friend?" "Just tell them Boris sent you." "Boris? That's your name?" "Yes," said Boris uncomfortably. "I was embarrassed to tell you before." "Well, that's not a worse name than Elmer," said Elmer. "I suppose not, and it's certainly not so bad as some in my family. I might as well tell you the rest of their names. My sister is Ingeborg, Eustatia's another sister, and then I have Gertrude and Bertha and Mildred and Hildegard, and my brother's names are Emil, Horatio, Conrad, Jerome, Wilhelm, Dagbert, and Egmont. Can you imagine? But hurry, I can't wait to hear what's been happening to them all." Once inside the tunnel, Elmer snapped on his flashlight and shot it out over the damp walls. The ceiling was high enough so he could walk easily. Down, down, down he went, around the curves, through the small rooms, and then more narrow tunnels until at last he came to a place where the dragon had got stuck. He heard scratching and scraping noises. He knew he must be very close to that dragon family. "It's Elmer Elevator, Boris's friend," he whispered as bravely as he could. "Who? Elmer Elevator? I'm Boris's friend. Boris is out at the entrance of this tunnel, and I have come to help rescue you." "Oh, turn off your light and come in," whispered another voice, and Elmer walked slowly into the darkness. He stopped. He felt himself surrounded by huge forms, breathing excitedly. "We can't tell you how grateful we are," said a gigantic dragon mother.
"Never mind that," whispered the father. "What's your plan? How can we help? We're almost starving to death in here."
"Oh, well, here, I have some chocolate bars," said Elmer, generously giving away his last 3 chocolate bars. "Here, I'll even open them for you, and I'll divide each one up into 5 pieces. I'm afraid it's not much, but it ought to help a little bit." Then he held his flashlight inside of his knapsack and divided up the chocolate as he explained his plan. They all chuckled low dragon chuckles and began to feel much better. Then Elmer made string necklaces for the horns and whistles for all the dragons and carefully tied them on. He wanted to take a really good look at the tremendous family, but they were near the entrance to the cave, and he had to keep his flashlight in his knapsack. As he took out the cap pistol, he asked, "Do you know how heavy that net is and how it's hooked on across the entrance?"
"No,"
answered the dragon's father. "Well, I'd better go sneak a look," said Elmer, and he quietly snuck up toward the net. But the men were sitting close by, and he didn't dare get close enough to see it very well. "Well, we're just gonna have to hope we get lucky," he told the dragons, and then he started back through the tunnel to go find Boris. Chapter 10. Escape. "Boris! Boris!" whispered Elmer under the snapdragon bush. "Are they all right? Oh, what has happened?" "Nothing's happened. Everything's all right, and we're ready to go. I couldn't see the net, but we'll just have to hope for the best. Did you say one of the men is called Frank?" "Yeah, I heard them mention Frank and Albert." "Good, I'll meet you here afterwards. I told your family you'd have to take me back and that you'd find them near here someplace." "Fine," said the dragon. "I can't wait." "All right, now, I'm going to go back. Remember, as soon as you hear my cap pistol the 3rd time, you're to make as much noise as you can with your horn as whistle." Elmer turned back down the tunnel and then hurried back into the cave. Everybody was ready. "Boris will be your signal," he explained. "As soon as you hear him blowing his horn and whistle, you're all to start blowing your horns and whistles as loud as you can and in every direction. I'll yell 'Boris' when it's time to charge, but look carefully at the net before you try to pass by. I don't know where the opening will be. Are you ready?" whispered Elmer. His heart was pounding very hard, and he was sure that it might echo through the cave. "Ready!" whispered the 15 dragons. Elmer crept up close to the net. The men were unrolling blankets and getting ready for the night. There was no moon in the sky. "Perfect," thought Elmer. He took out his cat pistol and fired it once, and then he cried out, "Help! Help!" He said it in a very gruff voice. "Get me out of here! I'm trapped!" The men jumped up, tripping all over blankets and bumping into one another. "Whoa, what was that? Somebody's stuck in the cave?" "Frank! Albert! Help!" yelled Elmer again. "Come on, let's hurry, let's save him," said the men as they began moving great boulders off of the edge of the net. "Ha-ha, so that's how they had hooked it down at the bottom," thought Elmer. "This will make things easy." Then he shot off his pistol again and he cried out, "Oh no, they got me! Help!" The men frantically rolled away all the boulders just as they began to pull aside the heavy net. Elmer shot off the pistol for the 3rd time and then he ran to the back of the cave. Boris heard the 3rd shot and began blowing his whistle and his horn and running up and down over the meadow. As the noise echoed over the lake, the 15 trapped dragons all started with their whistles and horns. Noise roared wildly through the cave, back and forth across the lake, and echoed madly around the circle of mountains. Some of the men had started off when they heard Boris. The others, who had been about to rescue Elmer, ran out of the cave in terror. Elmer shouted, "Boris!" and raced back through the tunnel. The 15 dragons surged toward the entrance, found where the men had pulled aside the net, and poured out through the opening, trampling out the campfire as they went. Into the sky they zoomed, blowing their whistles and horns, and then they disappeared. In the darkness, leaving 13 men scattered over the meadow where they had fled, and 3 men sitting in the lake water where they had jumped. "What happened?" said Frank to Albert. Chapter 11. The Dragon Affair. Elmer ran up the tunnel to Boris, and away they flew long before the noise had stopped echoing around the mountains. "Well, that's that," said Elmer, panting for breath and reaching for the second box of Fig Newtons. "Gosh, Elmer, I can't thank you enough," said the dragon. "Never mind that. I never had so much fun in my whole life. But you'll have to hurry to get me back to Seaweed City. I've got to take the train home as fast as I can." Over the desert they flew, and the wind grew stronger and stung Elmer's face. "I think a storm's coming up," said the dragon. "I can smell their sand in the air." "Wonderful," cried Elmer. "Then the men will have to leave Blueland, and maybe you'll never be bothered again." Over Spiky Mountain Range they sped, reaching the outskirts of Seaweed City at midnight. "How about leaving you on top of that monument?" suggested the dragon. "Then I won't have to land on the ground." "Oh, that's fine," said Elmer, and the dragon glided to the top of the Seaweed City monument overlooking the center of the city. "Goodbye. Goodbye for the last time," said Elmer. "I'm sorry I never got to really meet your family. They must have been amazing. But tell them for me that nobody will ever know more about them than they do right now, except for our old friend the alley cat. I'll never tell anybody about it ever." "Goodbye. I better hurry home, too," sobbed the happy baby dragon. He clumsily hugged Elmer, and off he flew. Elmer finished up the Fig Newtons, saving 1 box for on the train, and climbed down the monument. Quickly he walked to the railroad station and asked for a ticket to Nevergreen City.
"Isn't it rather late for a boy of your size to be taking a train all alone?"
said the ticket agent. "Yeah, I suppose so," answered Elmer, giving the man $7.27. The man shrugged his shoulders and handed Elmer a ticket.
"I can't get used to boys these days," he muttered. "By the way, there's a train coming in 20 minutes. Gets you down to Nevergreen at noon."
"Thanks," said Elmer, jingling the 9 cents that he had left in his pocket, as if he was used to taking trains in the middle of the night. When the train thundered into the station, Elmer climbed aboard.
"What are you doing, running away from home?"
asked the conductor suspiciously. "Oh, no, sir. On the contrary, I'm going home right now," said Elmer, looking at the conductor straight in the eyes.
"Have it your own way,"
said the conductor, punching his ticket. Elmer slept right through to Nevergreen City. He walked up the front steps of his home, just as his mother was making herself some lunch. "Elmer! Elmer, you're back! But you look half starved." "I am," said Elmer, hugging his mother and sitting down at the table. He ate 3 bowls of tomato soup, 5 slices of pumpernickel bread, and drank 4 glasses of milk. And then he ate 6 fried eggs and 2 huge pieces of cake. And then he went to go talk to the cat.
Drastic and unexplainable escape took place in the great high mountains of Blueland late Sunday night. 15 dragons, a wonder in themselves, as they have been long believed to be extinct.
And then the newspaper story went on to tell about the brave men who had fought their way back through a terrible sandstorm to tell the most amazing story of our lifetime.
"Unbelievers who doubt this story," continued Mr. Elevator, reading aloud from the paper, "will find it difficult to dismiss the following evidence of the presence of dragons in this region."
And then he kept reading about a ship on the coast of Popsicornia, which twice had seen a strange flying beast, and one time there was a boy on top. and about a certain Mr. Wagon Wheel who claimed also to have seen it twice. Once on the ground near his farm, and once in the air with a boy on board over Seaweed City. And about Chester DeWitt, a very small boy who also said that he had seen a dragon over the city last Thursday evening. Lastly, there was a short bit about the conductor and the ticket agent, who wondered if the boy they had seen Sunday night could have anything to do with this case of dragons, and so on. Mr. Elevator dropped the paper and stared at Elmer.
Do you have anything to do with all this? I just didn't understand your strange trips away from home.
Me, said Elmer, choking on a piece of toast. Why, Father, you don't mean you really believe all that nonsense in the paper, do you? And that's the end. Very exciting. And Elmer's poor parents still don't know all the things that he's done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed these 3 books. I'd love it if you would please message me on Seesaw and let me know which one you liked the best. Number 1, My Father's Dragon. Number 2, Elmer and the Dragon, or this last one, The Dragons of Blueland. Hey, let me know. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week with a new book.